Hey, what is up? This is Adam from cloudautomation.blog. In this video, I'm going to cover pretty much what I do for a living. More or less, what is an API? So let's jump in. People ask me, Adam, what do you do? And I kind of fumble, kind of like I am now. Like I do the cloud. I do help enterprises, automate, and there's really no good way to explain it to like the common person. But in a nutshell, what I do is I take APIs and I make them talk through some type of a soft piece of software or some system. People ask, well, what is an API? It's a lot. What we're looking at right now is a web page. A web protocol could be considered an API. People program to it, they code to it. When you go to it, what I'm seeing right now is an interpreter. So Chrome is an HTTP, among others. Or I should say an HTML, but among other interpreters. So when you go to, let's say, google.com, you're sending your request and it's returning a bunch of code. It's not returning that really fancy picture in the search bar. It's returning code, and then Chrome itself is actually formatting it to make it look good to you. Same thing with this web page I'm looking at now. It returned a bunch of code, which you can just look at. You can right-click in Chrome, and you can do View Page Source, and this is actually what it returned. This is what the Port 80 API returned, and Chrome is making it look like this. So in the professional sense of like what I do and how APIs work, I understand and kind of work with, how does an IPAM solution work with Active Directory and with IPS IDS and with, monitoring or backups, and how does that work on premises? So how does that work actually like in data centers? But how also does that work like in the cloud? So when we talk public, around AWS or Azure or Google or any of the other really public cloud providers, how does all that work? So just a really quick example. I'm not going to jump into how to set things up and get things going, but as a really quick example, just to kind of get everyone started with how APIs work and really like the power of what an API provides you. And this is specifically a REST API. So there's different types of APIs in this kind of automation, orchestration / cloud space. The two main ones are REST and SOAP. SOAP's kind of, at least in my opinion, kind of dying on the vine. It never really evolved. It's somewhat outdated. The one that is taking over within the last couple of years is a REST API, REST. So as an example of what we can do, just very simple. If you go to Chrome, you get an application. There's two that I use, Mailman. I already forget. I don't want to pull it up. But the other one I really like, it's very simple, is Advanced REST Client, ARC, Advanced REST Client. So just to kind of show you what we can do, openweathermap.org. You can get, they have an API, you can pull data. So if you look right here, you can see this is the URL. And then everything after that is the actual API, request. Oh, I just broke it. Let me close out of there. There we go. Okay, so back to my cool little demo. Everything after that is the actual API request. So /data /2.5, that's the version of the API we're using, /weather. And the producer, the maker of this API is the one that sets all this up. And what's really cool is there's really good guides today. So no matter the API, you could look for like the weather API, travel APIs. If you wanted to maybe look for the cheapest flights every day, you wanted to and send you an email or give you a call, or there's tons of stuff you could do based off of, let's say, a really high price or hopefully a really low price. So what I'm looking at right now is actually one of those API guides. So you can just go on openweathermap.com, look for that API guide, and it'll detail all the information that you would need with that API. So going back to Advanced REST Client, we can see we're looking for the zip code, and it's within the US. The units are imperial. And the app ID, which is just an identifier. It's more, a lot of, if you wanted secure websites, would use a username and password or some type of an authentication ID. This is just a very simple app ID, really nothing. You can just go request these if you wanted to mess around with this. But what all this gets you, it's kind of funny I said get. But what all this would get you is a response. And there's, I guess, jumping real quick to the get, post, put, delete, and patch. Those are the types of REST requests we can do. So we can get information. It's more or less you're pulling or requesting information. You can post, which is you're pushing information to the server. A put is very similar. I'll get into that in a future demo, but a put is also similar to you're putting something onto the server. A delete, pretty self-explanatory. What this gets you is I can click send on this, and what it's going to do is it's going to get me the weather for 48216 in the U.S. It's going to return it in imperial units. So by default, it's giving me I think Kelvin, but you could also do Celsius as well. So I'm going to do a send on this. You know what's really cool about this is it gives me a bunch of information about this zip code. So this API has been programmed to give all kinds of information. So the weather, the base, so you can see the temperature, visibility, wind speed, country code, all kinds of really cool stuff. So that doesn't really do anything for me, right? It just kind of, you know, I provided this URL. I could have just went to like Wonderground or weather.com and it would have returned all of this in a really fancy web page, kind of like this web page. You know, it's easy to read, but again, if I go to view page source, whoa, there's all this code. That's very similar to what's happening in this advanced REST client. So there's all this code. So how do we actually do something really cool with that? So I'm going to jump over to a program called vRealize Orchestrator. vRealize Orchestrator is obviously it's an orchestration client. If you couldn't tell by the name of it, there's a few out there. This one's free with vCenter. It used to be called vCenter Orchestrator. If you're a Microsoft user, you can download System Center Orchestrator. That's very similar. But I had access to this, and I'm a big fan of this tool, so let's use that. So the exact same thing. If I just drill into this scripting agent, kind of ignore all the code that's going on here. What we really care about here is this URL template. You can see it. It's very similar to what was used in the advanced REST client. So /data 2.5 weather zip. It's the zip code. The app ID is the API key, and these pink items are actually inputs. So you can see in API key, the zip code, and then the REST host, which the REST host would be this piece, this piece in the beginning. So if I go back here and I do let me edit this and then just do a debug, and I'm going to type in the zip code. So you can do any zip code. I'm going to use this zip code. It's close to my home. So I'm going to do submit. And it's going to go out and it's going to do something very similar. So it's going to parse that full URL you can see right there. And it returns that same data. That data should look very similar to this data, which it does. It's exactly the same. Now, but again, like it's, well, okay, that's cool. I have a bunch of JSON data or XML data, or like, what do I do with it? Okay, good question. Let's go to the next workflow I've created here. So again, I'm going to click edit on this guy. Click debug. So zip code. Again, same zip code. I'm going to click submit. And it's going to run that first same script, but I added a second script here. You can see I've pulled the temperature out of this big string. And I've added another string here, so that the current temp in Detroit is 67.46. Wait a second. In Detroit, how did it know that was Detroit? So check this out. So if I go over here, there's scripting. I've parsed this content. So it's JSON. I've parsed it and I set my temp to that object.main.temp, and then my city equals object.name. So if we go back here and we can scroll down, we can see object.name is Detroit. So the API, it's saying, hey, wait a second, you gave me the zip code. You gave me the zip code right here. Let's see what I can find out about it. I mean, they could do some really cool stuff depending on the API. It could return the population of the city. It could return the square mileage of the city, right? It could return anything, but just because it's a weather map, they don't need to return all that information. They just return the name of the city. So I'm like, heck, I can use that. So there's the name, and there's the temp. So main.temp and then just .name. If we go back here, you can see again, so main.temp and .name. So I added So var my city equals object.name, and then the current temp in my city is my temp. And that's where we get the current temp in Detroit is 67.46. So that's kind of cool, right? So we can do some more things there. But what if, we want to, maybe if it's under 70 degrees, we want to do something. And I did a real simple example here, so let me cancel out of this guy. Do something too. So now we have a decision point in here. And I have 2 scriptable tasks. So we're going to do the same thing. Quick edit. We're going to do a debug. 48216. Again, that's that same zip code in Detroit. So it says, hey, the current temp is 67 degrees. Might be a cool evening, so you bring a coat. Well, what if we change that? Let's do a debug. Let's go 90210. Good old Beverly Hills. Let's hope it's still over 70 degrees. There we go. Current temp is 73. So looks like looks to be a perfect evening. Forget the coat. So all this is I passed. So an orchestration engine is more or less you can collect information from various sources and then make decisions based on the data that is extracted from those sources. So the scripting. So I output the my temp out of this scripting here. So you can see my temp equals object.main.temp. And we go to this custom decision, and I say if I first input the my temp, but I say if the temperature is less than 70, then return true, else return false. And what those true false do is it sends it down. You can see false is red, true is green. And then within these, I just do system.log might be a cool evening. But so this is a very simple example. So there's a big but here. You could reach out to, let's say, a Gmail calendar or an Alexa, or you name it, and you could set a reminder, or you could send yourself an email to say, hey, don't forget your code, or don't forget your umbrella. If you look back on this advanced REST client, the main is clouds and the description is scattered clouds. Well, if it was raining or partly cloudy or fog, you could set all these different conditions just for something very basic, such as the weather. Visibility, if maybe you have poor sight or something, right? There's all kinds of things you could do based off of this. So this was just one really simple example of an API. I'm absolutely going to get into more in depth. I get asked this question all the time. Hey, what do you do, or what is an API, or how does an API even work with, in the enterprise or within businesses, and what can you do? This is, as I said, this is one very simple example. Hopefully it worked, Hopefully it made sense to you and kind of opens up your eyes if you haven't really seen something like this before of the power of an API and really the power of an orchestration engine, which the majority of my future videos will be around. Thanks for watching my video. Have a great day.